Hey, everybody. So we are live, and I'm really excited to be on here tonight to discuss how much we love the royal family. And I'm not saying that sarcastically, but we are here to discuss a topic that is so much in the news right now. Everybody after the coronation, all of the news outlets are discussing King Charles's swollen fingers and what he himself and his mother, Queen Elizabeth, coined at his birth as King Charles's sausage fingers. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to tie it into what happened at the coronation with the ring and the bracelet, and also the golden spurs. And we're going to talk about the significance of that because they all have religious symbolism, and whether or not King Charles saw them as relevant for a following reason that we'll talk about. And then we will cover a little bit about what people are saying about Prince Harry. And yeah, so I am Deanna here from Hot for History. I love history. I talk about history all the time. Every day I post a history video. Today I just posted one about Queen Charlotte. But I also do talk about current events, and I will continue to talk about current events and history in the making. So please do follow, please do continue to follow me, share, and you are all welcome. We are so great here. We're a really good community of people that come from all different sides of the coin as far as all history, the royal family, and we ask questions. I ask a lot of questions about history because even, for example, I won't get into it too much tonight, but the excellent Shonda Rhimes series on Netflix about Queen Charlotte, where she herself has said, don't consider this fact, consider it fiction, but she entertains the idea of the Black Tudors and Black royals. And so even that's up for debate and discussion. And so we are here to talk about it. And so tonight, welcome everybody. Let me see where you are all from. Thank you. Okay, we see that you are from Florida. Thank you. And we have people here from the Midwest. And I do like to keep things really positive in the chat. So if things get too negative, you can go ahead and maybe not comment about if it's too negative. That does not mean that I don't like when things are when we talk about different topics and we disagree. That's fine. Just with love, always with love. California, Colorado, Madison, Wisconsin, Maryland, you guys are all welcome. And yes, I am sitting here without the green screen tonight. We're going to talk. I'm going to just go right into it. First off, the swollen fingers, sausage finger thing was something that I discussed prior to King Charles taking the throne because I was worried personally about his fingers because his fingers swell up a lot. He talks about it. It's everywhere right now. This is not my bringing it up, but we're talking about it because he's talking about it. So people are concerned. I was concerned because Queen Elizabeth I actually ended up dying a week after her doctors said you need to cut off your coronation ring because you're going to have sepsis or something. This was way back in the day, right? She kept her coronation ring on for 45 years. She also did use lead makeup. She also did use, all kinds of toxic stuff. She did it with the sugar. So we don't know if it was the ring or not, or a combination of all of those things. Other people said she could have had cancer. Who knows? Then when Queen Victoria put her ring on her finger, the Archbishop was supposed to place it on, of course, her ring finger. It's supposed to go on the fourth finger here on the right hand. I think they put it on the left and then they put it on the right away. And then they put a glove over it. Well, what they did with her, they didn't size it the right way. And they were supposed to actually put it on one finger and then he put it on the other. And it was so tight that she couldn't take it off. And she was crying and she was only 18 years old. And she was a tiny thing. She was not a big, at the time, she was not big, And so eventually they had to take her, when she went home, they took all this butter and they had to cut the ring off her finger. So before the coronation, I brought up the sausage finger comment, and you'll see why, because Queen Elizabeth herself used that phrase. And also I think Charles has many times, as has Prince William. So we're not coining this phrase ourselves. We're talking about it not out of hatred toward the king, but out of a concern that most people have right now for King Charles. So I'm going to read this article and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so it could be something to do with his kidneys. I hope I'm wrong, but puppy, and I'm going to read about that in a second, could signal kidney problems. Okay, he has edema, possibly. That's what they're saying. I will read this right now so you can kind of see what they're saying, because I think that is basically the consensus. So let me get to it. And it is concerning. However, some people say maybe he just has big fingers, right? But it's concerning because he's, almost in his mid 70s, and he's just taking the crown, the throne now, and everybody is so concerned about it. So let me see where this is. Okay, so this is what the experts, the doctors are saying. I'm going to go into that first. This is the story behind King Charles's sausage fingers. Again, not my personal phrase, but there has been a lot of funny and entertaining commentary and spoofs and parodies made on it through the years that Charles himself has laughed about. Okay, so Charles III was crowned king in the coronation ceremony in Westminster Abbey on Saturday. The former Prince of Wales ascended the throne following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, the country's long-serving monarch. Fans of the royal family have previously expressed concern for the king over photos in which his hands appeared excessively red and swollen. The images have prompted speculation from various members of the medical community who have suggested the swelling could be what you guys are saying, edema. According to the National Health Service, the NHS, edema is characterized by swelling of the arms, hands, ankles, feet, and legs. The swelling is usually caused by fluid retention in these areas. So when he flies, for example, things swell up. However, the king's hands have been a topic of discussion since the day he was born. As his late mother, the queen, observed in a letter to her her former music teacher, according to the Mirror, she wrote, "The baby is very sweet and we are enormously proud of him. He has an interesting pair of hands for a baby." And then the queen says, "They are rather large, but with fine long fingers, quite unlike mine and certainly unlike his father's. Father, it will be interesting to see what they become. I still find it hard to believe I have a baby of my own." And then King Charles also referred to them himself once in a letter to a friend after Prince William's birth. He says, this I thought was really cute, guys, because I had never read this before. He goes, "I can't tell you how excited and proud I am. He really does look surprisingly appetizing. And," this is King Charles saying it, "has sausage fingers just like mine." That was back when William was born in 1980 something. His digits also drew attention on May 2021 when the former Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla, traveled to Old Town in South London to celebrate a reopening of the non-essential stores. And then many people wondered what the swelling was due from. Was it a health condition, whatever? So anyhow, this has been a topic for years, and now it is gaining steam again. Like, people are talking about his fingers. And so I know, before we even started, I got, got attacked a little bit, but I am talking about this for a reason, not because I'm poking fun at him, because it's current news and because I want to tie it into the importance and the historical context of the coronation ring. Okay, so I'm just going to read one more thing. His fingers weren't as fat. Yes. When he was younger, they seem to be swollen now. And as we get older, we all need to be aware of that, I think. And, I don't know. I mean, I think if he had a serious heart condition, but they also say it could be medication, right? It's a condition that has led to an unfortunate nickname, but even King Charles has commented on his own, in quotes again, sausage fingers, his phrase. Royal fans have often speculated the appearance of his fingers and whether there is a cause of concern. And then, so they're saying that it's called dactylitis, like, pterodactyl, how he had the fingers, but that is actually a term. There's even a phrase for it. He said, "Often puffy fingers are a symptom of water retention, which can be caused by numerous health conditions. Sausage fingers are officially known as dactylitis." And he says this condition arises because of inflammation. We discussed this, but also possibly bacterial infections or even TB. Other possibilities include high salt levels, allergic reactions, medicinal side effects, injury, and autoimmune diseases. So this is what we're talking about. He's got chubby fingers. Okay. And everybody, like, some people are just noticing now. Is that normal? Is like okay. Is this normal? Well, I wouldn't say it's highly unusual. I mean, I actually think many people have it, especially as they get older, but I don't think it's that common. And it could be, I'm really into the whole diet thing as well. It could be his diet. Brits love sausages. They really do. He may have a heart condition, and that is the concern. So the reason I titled this, guys, into being, this specifically, was because I wanted to discuss something that I observed in regards to the coronation ring. So there were things that we discussed and that we talked about we should be expecting at the coronation: the crown, the oil, all of this. Well, there's a coronation ring. And remember, I had a video. I was like, I'm really concerned. Like, what's he going to do? Like, how are they going to size the ring? How are they going to put it on his finger? It never dawned on me that he might just touch it, right? So there were three things that I think, and I may be wrong with one, and you guys can correct me, that he didn't do. And my big question as I read about this and I tell you the history behind it is, okay, the reason why they do these things, they put on a crown or whatever, because it's symbolic, right? It's symbolic of, becoming the head of the, of the country, all of that. It's symbolic. I have a feeling that Charles, as many people say, well, everything's symbolism, everything's symbolism. I don't think he's that. I totally do not think he's superstitious, because even the taking of, did you guys feel okay with him taking his name, King Charles III? Like, of course, that his name is Charles, so why not? For me, because I'm really into history, like, I would not have wanted to been in the family of Charles. Like, I would have rather have been King George, the seventh or whatever. I would have preferred that. So anyhow, I just, he didn't do that. So, which shows to me that he's not that superstitious. So all of these things, and I'm going to talk about, there were spurs, there's a bracelet aspect, and then there was the ring, which we're going to talk about. So let me see, heart failure with edema, but with proper treatment, yes, he had that pinky ring since he became Prince of Wales. He may have to resize that. Or, and then some rings are just kind of bendier, right? I thought his mom I wanted him to, I was like, gosh, it would have been so great, because then, I mean, William could have been like William V, and then baby George could have been like George VIII, which I thought would be really, really cool. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit. I'm not going to go too far into it, but basically there were spurs. And now these spurs were created to represent knighthood, to represent chivalry, to represent, kind of like being battle friendly, and and so that's one of the things that they would put on the feet. And they changed the spurs during King William IV, or maybe it was George VI. The spurs were made in 1661 for King Charles, but the spurs at coronation dates back to King Richard I, the Lionheart, in 1189. The spurs were altered in 1820 for George IV, and then the new textiles replaced the earlier ones. So I think since like George IV, they haven't really been putting them on. They've just been taking the spur and like placing it by the feet. So here's a piece of history that I think, if I could find it, that you guys would find really interesting. The guy who had the honor of putting the spur kind of at his feet actually has a history. Let me see if it's in the next article. There's one guy, let me see if I can find his name. I might have to revisit this. I might have to come back to this, but there was the guy who was given the honor of placing the spurs on the ankles and just kind of touching his feet. And he actually, technically, some people argue, should have been the rightful king. And the guy's like, I have no aspirations to become a king, so whatever. I'm going to try to come back to that. But here's my question. So they just did the spurs, the bracelet, the amaryllis. Let me read. Those wrist item guards against injury from swords. Okay, so they're called these things, these bracelets as well, were I'm going to read what this is. Okay, so the queen wore the bracelet. Okay, the final post in our week article is about the queen's coronation jewelry. Okay, British coronations incorporated the use of arm mills for centuries. The coronation service includes the text calling the arm mills the bracelet of sincerity and wisdom, symbolic of the Lord's protection. All these things are Christian references, you know, the crown, the robe, the whole thing. And as if he's a representation on earth, sort of Christ. I mean, that's basically at the end of the day, kind of what they're getting at. So pre-restoration sovereigns wore a pair of gold bracelets set with pearls and rubies during the coronation. These were lost during the Commonwealth period of the 1650s. And I mean, some of you may think this is boring, but I'm getting to a point at the symbolism. Like for me, like I think it all means something, right? But I feel like for Charles, he's not that, let's say, sentimental, or I don't know. You guys can tell me once we clear this and we have the conversation. So these were lost during the Commonwealth period in 1650, and then they were made again for King Charles II. The bracelets pictured above are the velvet lined arm mills made for the ceremony, produced by this guy Viner. And rather than set in gold, they were set in something else, but they mean something. Okay, so I'm going to get to the rings in a second, but I want to read what you guys have to say. Let me see. The leader of the House of Commons was the lady in the blue dress. Her name was Penny Morton, that carried the jeweled sword at the coronation. She looked stunning. I was trying to, like the last live I was on, I was trying to get to that because she was stunning. She is a member of the parliament, and she said that she had to practically do more like bicep curls or whatever for like weeks, because she said the thing was so heavy. She said it was so heavy, but she did look spectacular. And I think she was wearing, I want to say it was either an Alexander McQueen outfit as well, or it could have been Bruce Oldfield. So everything has mystical reference to it. It revolves around magic and not religion. I feel like it's so close. Like you could take it either way, right? And they could interpret it either way. And so, because for example, I kind of hang out like with people that are more like Christian mystics, right? So they're tied into that. So it could be both. So for me, not putting certain things on, especially the ring, which is why I wanted to come on tonight, not because of his sausage fingers, and yet they're related to the sausage fingers. Okay. I'm going to read this. The spurs is the symbol of honor and courage. So I'm going to ask you the question. Does that mean if you're not putting the spurs on, it means that you're not, walking in honor and courage? Not necessarily. This jeweled sword for the protection of good, as the Church of England notes, it is a symbol of defense in the defenseless, but also the word of God, which is St. Paul compared to a sharp sword. The arm mills, also called bracelets of sincerity and wisdom, representing the protection of God. The stole, royal, and robe royal represent what the king as sovereign has been given by God. So, he carries the weight on his shoulders. I mean, it's in scripture, the weight is on his shoulders. The orb represents religious and moral authority. The ring, similar to a marriage ring, the coronation ring marries the king to God in duty and to the people and in loving service. The glove signifies the king as an advocate and challenger of his people. Okay, so all of those things are symbolic. Here is one of the rings that went back. I believe this one went back, like it predated Charles. Like this is one of the older ones. So predated like Charles the First, when everything was like basically destroyed. So there were like 3 levels of rings. One that was like, after Elizabeth the First, but before Charles the First, before Charles the First. So after her, but before Charles the First, when everything was destroyed. And then Charles II created new stuff. And then William the Fourth, there were some more new things. So this coronation ring, which would have been the one that would have been connected to King Charles the Third, was the coronation ring dating from 1831, which represents dignity. It is placed on the sovereign's right hand, and the scepters are given. So then he has the glove after that. So it's placed on his right hand, and then he's given the glove, and then the scepter adorned with the dove is called the rod of equity and mercy. It's symbolic of the sovereign's spiritual role. The scepter with the cross symbolizes his power on the earth. Okay. Now we're going to have this conversation. because he decided the only thing, first off, I thought that the coronation was spectacular. I thought everything was like flawless. I'm going to admit, for a hot minute in the very beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. It's one thing to see it in pictures, like Queen Elizabeth's in pictures. But when you start to see it live, like there was that part of me was like, this is so weird. It's like Halloween. I thought that for a second. No. Are you saying the King Charles refusal to wear it means the he not my king? No, I think what I'm saying is, actually, I'm not saying anything. I'm asking a question because this is how I work. I'm asking a question: is if they're putting significance in these things, this means you are married to England. This means, let's just talk about the ring. Let's put the spurs and everything aside. This means you are married to England. This means that you've made a commitment for justice and whatever to the people. Shouldn't he at least put it on for the ceremony? They could have done whatever they needed to, size it big, put a little extender on it, put it on his finger for a minute, even on the tip, like even on the very tip of his finger, maybe. But he touched it instead. So I'm not saying anything. I'm asking because I don't know. I know that I can go out there, but I know that people sometimes they'll go, did you see what happened to Charles? Well, it could have been like because of the ring. Like, I know that that's dramatic. And I think in many cases, things don't mean anything. And in other cases, I think symbolism means everything. So I know that I'm sounding crazy right there, but I wanted to have a conversation. I didn't really want to make any bold statements out of it. But on my video that I put up, and I didn't put up here yet, I think I'm putting it up tomorrow, but on, there's another social media thing that starts with a T, double T's. I put it up there and there's thousands of people commenting on it. And it's interesting. It's just interesting what they're having to say about him not putting the ring on. So let's see what you guys have to say. It's interesting to compare Queen Elizabeth's coronation to Charles, much more audience participation and robes and crowns. Yeah, because they all wore the coronets and there were 8,000 people there. It kind of did feel so much smaller, even though there were 2,500 people there. But let's see. Poor Queen Victoria was battered at her. Yes, she got bopped in the head, and I think in the forehead or whatever too. And apparently the crown, is crushing. We're going to talk about Harry in a second. Well, what do you guys think? Is there any symbolism? Is it relative at all that he did not put the ring on? And should they have handled that different than them? Let's touch the ring. I just found it odd. And again, I was like, this thing is amazing. I did observe my own reaction at first where I was like, oh, I kind of giggled when I saw like them walk in with the crown. I was kind of like, there's a part of me that slightly eye rolled in the beginning. It's true. But what did you guys think? I was shocked that they resized the crown. I thought the jewels are museum quality. Amazing. Yes. Did anyone else think the purple shirt Charles wore and I couldn't see it, looked like he'd stolen it from a theater? It just looked cheap to me. There was so much I didn't see under his robes. I mean, I want the crown jewels. Yes. He should have done something with the ring. I think so too. I think even if they put it on a different finger, put it on the tip of his pinky. Okay. Put it on there. Okay. Make the vow, do the thing, gracefully take it off, put it back in the thing, and the kind of the guy in charge of the ring. And then Camilla could have done the same. It's the wedding ring of England. They call it the wedding ring of England. This means you are consecrated to England, and he never put it on. You just touch it. And this is what I wanted to tell you. The irony in that is that Charles I died, right? King Charles I, getting back to his name. He was executed, and then the monarchy was destroyed. Oliver Cromwell came in. Eventually, Charles II came back. So first Charles I, monarchy dies. Charles II, he's coming back to restore it. And he would not put the ring on. He had to create a new ring, although they thought that maybe he found his dad's ring somehow. I'm sorry, it wasn't his dad. I think it was his grandfather. He found Charles I's ring, but he would not put the ring on and he touched and he only touched the ring as well. He's the only other monarch who did not put the ring on. So he touched it, and they asked him why he didn't put it on, and he said it was because of the brokenness of the monarchy. That's why he didn't put the ring on. And that was what got me last night. And I was like, I got to talk about this because it seems like a subtle thing, but whatever. And then there was all of this craziness during his monarchy near the end as well. So anyhow, I'm just saying, why do the public dislike Camilla? I think it's so guys, think about what I just said, but I want to answer these questions. I don't know if the public dislikes Camilla. I think some of the public dislikes Camilla, and my argument with the whole thing is that no matter what she does, because they had that history and because Diana was so dynamic, it's hard for her to sort of get on equal footing in the public eye, at least for people who knew who she was, right? And Camilla, in many ways, is more compatible with the king, and she's more of a support rather than an icon, right? And so some people just remember, and I say that it's hard to get out from the phantom shadow of Princess Diana, and that's what I think. But I think a lot of people really like Camilla. I did laugh when Charles appeared in undershirt and, oh wait, I didn't see that part. The point looked, oh, I did not see that part. Charles pants didn't fit him well. Camilla and Kate, I'm going to talk also, by the way, about Harry. Kate were wearing designer clothes. Charles looked bargain basement. I know. Well, he has to wear those, the ermine coat. That was pretty old. Did Elizabeth put the ring? Yes, she did put the ring on. They all put the ring on. Camilla touched her ring too. Yes, neither one of them. And like I'm saying, it's ironic, and again, it means nothing unless it means everything, right? It means nothing. It's just them touching it, and his fingers were swollen. However, historically, it's interesting. I loved every minute. Our oaths and ceremony are critical to traditions, and no one does it better than the British. Maybe it's because of my military background where ceremony, I like the rituals too. And maybe that's why I didn't like that he didn't put the ring on. And yet I get it because his hands are so swollen, but still, I think Queen Elizabeth did put the ring. Yes, she did. I really dislike Camilla. She'll always be a side chick to me. So, and then, there's just so many different opinions on her. There just really are. So let's go to these royal photos because the royal photos look spectacular. What example? Well, I don't have an example to the broken monarchy at this point. I'm just saying what Charles II said, unless you're having a conversation with somebody else and I didn't know. That's what Charles II said. That's not what Charles III said. He did not say that when he didn't put the ring on. I think for Charles III, it was practicality. It was like, I'm not going to keep this ring on. Let me acknowledge it and touch it. After all, with the spurs, they just put it at my feet and I don't keep it at my feet. So I'll just touch it. And yet in context for me, for symbolism, I don't know. I think he should have put it on his pinky or something. I need to go back and look at that. Yeah. I thought they couldn't resize the ring because they belong in a museum. No, I think they have resized them before, but yes, there are some in the museum, but I believe they have resized them before. Edward VII had it on. I thought they couldn't resize. Okay, this is an amazing channel. Thank you, Red Hawk. Camilla knows where she fits in the monarchy and will not rock the boat, but maybe that will change now she has been queen. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure if you guys have any stories about what went down with Princess Anne, because apparently she said, she said something like, hey, you're not really the queen. You're the queen consort. I don't know. I'm not sure. I am going to try to find, there was a piece about the spurs, and I know that you guys probably, I don't know, maybe this is too nerdy, but I think it's interesting. There was a guy, this is important for me. Okay, so there is a guy named, he says, I'm delighted and sincerely honored to accept the invitation by the crown to perform the bearer of the golden spur role at the coronation of King Charles III. Abby Hastings wrote, where he regularly posts. He says, the irony Did you guys know this, that there's this guy named Abney Hastings, who's, in royal circles? He says some historians believe it's him, not Charles, who should be crowned. This is on the grounds that they believe Edward IV, who ascended to the throne in 1461, was illegitimate, and that royal succession should have instead gone to his brother George, Duke of Clarence, of whom Abney Hastings is a direct descendant. But observers shouldn't expect any attempted royal coup because the Earl of Loudoun told London that he has no royal aspirations. Did you know that? I had no idea that there was that. I knew that there were many people who were like, oh, that person should be, the monarch or whatever. But let's look at the big pictures, because they're really beautiful. And then their photographer's name is Hugo Bernand, and he took pictures also of Camilla and Charles's wedding, also Kate and Will's wedding, and he's done all the pictures. But look at these pictures. I mean, I think she ended up on the balcony. I thought I saw her kind of behind Kate and Will. I thought she ended up going there. And I thought I saw her at the concert too, but again, I wasn't looking the whole time. Okay. All right. So let's see. I mean, look at how spectacular this is. And I finally got to see Kate's dress because I was wondering. I think they all look amazing. They all look great. Okay, so let's look at this. This guy, Hugo, imagine your photos. All of a sudden, they're like historic. This is a beautiful picture. I mean, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And let me know your thoughts on the pictures. And that's okay. So here's the purple shirt you were talking about. Yeah, it does kind of look. I mean, what are you gonna do when you've got that ermine, cape over you? I don't know, but yeah, they could have maybe made that look a little bit better, I guess. And then this I showed you guys the other night. I'm still just blown away by that. But now we're going to talk about this new controversy. Personally, I didn't think it was a big deal, but that's me. Okay, the comment from Princess Anne saying that Camilla is not queen. She's queen consort. That made me smile. Way to go, Princess Anne. But they are officially calling her queen again because that's just the descriptor. Camilla's crown looked kind of photoshopped on. Yeah, Princess Anne looks great in you. I love Princess Anne. She's always been pretty amazing. So what do you guys think of this thing about, so what they're saying, I'm not even going to read it, but I'm going to tell you. So Harry comes and he sits in the third row. He's greeted with his cousins, and apparently people were cordial to him, talking to him, but the king really wanted to spend more time with him, apparently. And they're like, why did he leave? He should have stayed a little bit longer. But now the big drama is that he is wearing a Christian Dior suit. And I say this just because this is the buzz in the press, okay? That's a French designer, okay? Now, simultaneously, Christian Dior tweeted, look at the new morning suit. It's the Prince Harry morning suit. So the royal family is using British designers, which is understandable. Not only do they use British designers, but they don't get paid like for how much is sold, right? But they will shout out their designers that they're loyal to, and those designers benefit from that, whatever. Some people are saying that Harry apparently went there, and again, I don't think this is I don't know. I think he's not a senior royal anymore, but and he wanted to try to sell the suits because he made some kind of endorsement deal with Christian Dior. And in fact, he's going to be the spokesperson and a model or whatever, for Christian Dior. So that's one thing. And then the other thing was that apparently it was tweeted out. He wore the suit. He should have worn a British suit. And that was part of the reason why I went. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's a legitimate comment? So I was a white t-shirt looking before they put on nice garb. Harry gave no eye contact and limited words. And as King walked past, he basically ignored the king. That is so sad. That is so, so sad. Yeah, that's pretty sad. So I heard King Charles upgraded Camilla's title to queen. But the thing is that I don't understand, because what I've always been taught is that there are descriptors, right? Like if a queen married a guy, he would never be the king. So it was Prince Philip was prince consort, but they called him Prince Philip. They didn't walk around calling him prince consort. Um, there's different types of queens. So even though we called the queen mother, we also called her Queen Elizabeth. We did. They called Queen Mary, even though she was a dowager queen at a time. So consort, what I've always been taught, is a description. So it's not like, oh, how could they drop the consort and just call her queen? They're going to call her queen, but people can call her consort. That's a choice. Like you can say, you can use it as a description. You don't have to call her the queen, but it is still appropriate to call her the queen. So if that makes sense, he's not a working royal anymore, and he needs to make a living. And then that's the other thing. I thought the same exact thing. I was sort of like, I mean, we've talked about this before, that he has to make some money. And the only thing, even though he was from a multi-million and billion-dollar family or whatever, if you're being given an allowance or a limit, and that your potential is so much higher, then I understand, especially if you're in America, why you do it. However, the way that he does it was not from his intelligence and talent. The way he did it was from talking about the family that he left, that he felt like he was limited by. So that's a whole other thing. But anyhow, let me see if anybody else has any comments. Who was the first mistress, the mistress to become queen? Oh my gosh, there were so many mistresses. Who was the first mistress? Well, people don't know if Anne Boleyn was really, the way that they think it was Anne Boleyn, in my opinion, but EH could say something else, because she was trying to hold out and being like, oh no, I'm not going to be with Henry VIII. And then all of a sudden, when she gave birth, it was like within not a 9-month time period. And then of course they will say it wasn't a mistress because they annulled the first marriage. So I don't know. There may be somebody else. Charles is the regent. Camilla is not a regent. She is the consort. That is correct. His dad has disrespected and ignored him when he visited multiple times. It was kind of Harry to go at all. That is true. It was good for him to go. I think it was the right decision. I think the consort part is usually added to differentiate between a queen regnant. Yes. The guy he sat next to was chatty, but at funeral, he ignored Harry waiting for cars. It was really obvious at funeral. Yeah, but I think also that was that Eugenie's husband. So I think at the funeral it was very different, because it's like, very solemn. But he's close with his cousins, from what I understand, and I think that made him probably feel good. I think he needs the cash, probably. I miss pre-Meghan and pre. Yes, I do too, because I like. He was very, very well loved. Harry sharing about dysfunction in his family wasn't wrong. It's his story to tell. Yes. It is his story. It is his story to tell. There's dysfunction everywhere. I think that we get to express things about our painful childhood and stuff, but I think that they've made a lot of mistakes in the way that they've expressed it, but I do not think the royal family is perfect either. Didn't Charles make her no. So the way that it worked was that, he was going to be the king. And so what do you call the wife? She could have been called princess consort. That is originally what the queen wanted. We don't know for sure what went down to make Queen Camilla rather than Princess Camilla. She was going to have to be given some kind of royal title. I do think that personally, there was one moment during the service where I kind of got creeped out a little bit, where I felt like her smile looked like when they put the crown on her, it looked like one of those Cheshire cat things, like, aha, Like it was kind of, it's kind of weird. I think I saw the king pause and look towards Harry's seat when Charles was leaving the abbey. Oh, that's sad. I mean, we all want families to be together, you know? Yeah. And telling it, doing a tell-all book is so Hollywood, lowbrow Hollywood. I think so too. So I think Harry had every right to go off on his own, and Meghan too. But he was crushing it with the Invictus Games. She was crushing it with all of her charitable things in, in the UK. She worked her butt off. Honestly, you can say that about Meghan. Even when she was pregnant, she went around, met people, was gracious to them. And that is true. But it is, it says a lot with how you do things. Do you have to call them out? I don't know. I don't think, I'm one of those people probably that, and I know a lot of people who would be upset with their family, but it's like, okay, I can say what I want about my family, but you better not say anything bad about my family. And so they defend the family, and they probably would still keep the secrets. I think the book was tacky too. The interview was enough. The interview was awesome. I think the Netflix series, even though they said that was, awful, I think if they have left with that, ended with the series, even though there were some really bad moments, there were some really good things about the series. We got to see them kind of as a couple. We got to hear their story. Yes, she made the bow. It was really tacky. But I think if they would have ended with that rather than his book, his psychological interview on TV, the whole nine, and just continue to do their advocacy work, build the Invictus Game, continue to give back, I think that would have been great. Yes, the armor of God for sure. Stop blaming Meghan for everything. She didn't do anything wrong. I didn't blame Meghan for anything. I'm just saying that I don't know what I said. Did I blame Meghan? I said she bowed and it was tacky, and it was tacky, but I'm not blaming her for anything. I think people overblame Meghan in many ways because Harry was so likable, and she is like not the scapegoat, but she gets a lot of stuff because they can't imagine that it's Harry. But quite frankly, he needs to grow a pair, and he needs to, take responsibility for some of his stuff. She married into the family and pledged to perform duties. She failed. Okay. Didn't Prince Harry's mom write a book with Andrew Morton? Yes. Or was it? Okay. So this is the one thing that I don't know what's not clear is whether Andrew Morton wrote the book, not with Diana. I don't know if they wrote it together. I honestly don't, but yes. But it wasn't Andrew Morton that wrote this book. Okay, so I think we've covered everything. I still didn't get an answer from any of you guys as to what you think. Is there any significance with them not putting the ring on? Is it just it's not a big deal? It's just it made sense because his hands were swollen. Very practical. Or in a big event like this, is avoiding the symbolism, like the actions of what is symbolic. Like what would have happened if he would have not worn the crown? Would that have meant something? If he hadn't worn, the cape, would that have meant something? So if one thing means something, why don't the others? Or is it just crazy stuff anyhow that a bunch of people made up in the first place? Although it's supposed to represent aspects from the Bible when they're talking about the full armor of God, but I don't remember a ring in there. I do remember the feet. I do remember the breastplate. I do remember the crown. So some of these things, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but my question is, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think that they should have done that? Okay. So guys, this has been fun. Again, no insult for sausage fingers. It is just basically what they've called his fingers, what he's called his fingers, what he's called Will's fingers. And people genuinely take ownership of their king, and they want to know, does he have edema? Is there something that should be looked at? Like if I take a walk too much and I haven't had water, my fingers swell up. I mean, there are times they say most of us, honestly, we could drink as much water as possible, but if we're not fully hydrating ourselves at a cellular level, then we could become dehydrated So this is a concern. His mistress shouldn't be called the queen. The queen is Queen Diana. And this is what I was bringing up the other day, was that Diana was so dynamic that I think it's not, somebody said, why do people hate Camilla? I just think that there's such a vivid and strong memory and images of Diana. But at the same time, if you really think about it, would it have worked for her to have been queen? Because he kind of needed somebody who would be kind of hanging out with him, right? I think Diana had a lot of big plans, and she was more of a modern woman wanting to do all kinds of things that may not have worked for him. I heard Diana sent cassette tapes. Was that? Yeah, that is true. I did see that too. Okay, everybody talks about Harry's book and forget that that Charles' book, he wasn't very nice to his parents, but now they say Harry's book is despicable. You know what? They all, like, there's the reason why we watch this is because it's fascinating that this is a royal family and there's all kinds of hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy. Hold on, where are you guys? Okay. All right, guys, I think I'm going to go. Charles wanted heads of other religions to be part of the ceremony. Creep me out. They met him when leaving the ceremony instead of participating in it. I think it was a good compromise because I think, he's the head of the Church of England, and the Archbishop was adamantly opposed to that. And so I know it was very underscored. Some people probably blinked and didn't notice because it wasn't on camera. We didn't hear anything. It was just like when he left. But I think it was what they compromised. I think that's what it is. And yes, Sylvia, it's very sad, but I did read yesterday, I think it was, that Diana said, and this surprised me, so it's probably going to surprise you too, that Camilla was not the cause of their problems in their marriage, or not the cause of their breakup, I think, because she said there were other issues. And I was surprised to hear that because I know that she confronted Camilla and said, basically, get your hands off my man. Imagine if Diana had lived to be crowned the queen, the media would have gone bananas. It would have been a whole other thing. And it would have been in many ways, a great story. I'm a romantic. I would have liked the story with them going to therapy, working out their problems. Because at one point, apparently, they both did love each other. Even Charles had admitted that, So I would have loved to have seen what it would have been like for them to kind of get together, like have the happy ending. Diana, all of those years with what she went through. And now we have Harry and Will watching their parents become king and queen. Like, it's a whole different level. And that's what I think when people say, why do you hate Camilla? I don't hate Camilla. It's just that there's this romantic story in my head. And this is the thing about history or things that happen today. It's like history, like there's so many different narratives. There's different narratives. And I would like the full ending, the completion, the happy ending. But, I think we hold out what we think would have been a happy ending, but Diana and Charles, they weren't as compatible as Camilla and he, like, honestly. Yes, I know that. And then sometimes, in all honesty, Sylvia, and I'm bringing this up because I'm the same way. I'm thinking all of the same things that you are. But one thing I catch myself on is what is real and I do think it's real about those cufflinks, but what is real and what is in our imagination based on a lot of the fiction that has been out. And I started this by talking about Queen Charlotte, which I'm going to watch the whole series. And I would like to come on and do a whole historic thing with you guys regarding Queen Charlotte. So if you can watch the Shonda Rhimes, it's a mini series. It's a limited mini series. It's like a predates Bridgerton, which I didn't watch Bridgerton yet, believe it or not. But it's like people will watch that and think that that is the truth and remember that that's the truth. And even Chandra Rhimes says that's not the truth. This is my interpretation. It's like alternate history. So what we need to remember, because we're all fans of like The Crown and all of this, sometimes I catch myself because I'll say, oh, this happened. And then the royal family will go, that didn't happen. That was just placed into the crown. So what do we know that's real and what don't we know? The reason why I love doing history and the reason why I'm diving into current events too is because we see things at different angles depending on who we are. And I believe we're allowed to have thoughts and opinions and feelings on the subject. There are certain concrete facts, but there are other things where, like, I heard this, I heard that he did that, and they're partial truths. But it's okay for us to create stories about it. I love that Chandra Rhimes is doing this, because what happens is that even though Queen Charlotte may not have been all black, like they don't even know if she really was. She was Moorish of Portuguese descent. Her portraits look like she definitely has some type of African background. However, she definitely wasn't as black as the actress and the actors there. But what it does do is it brings up the subject that there were aristocrats and royals that were of color. So it brings up that. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that sometimes we think we know what history is and what happened, even with Diana and Charles, but what we're repeating is basically all hearsay. But because it's hearsay, I believe we're still allowed to interpret. I still believe we're allowed to have opinions. That's why I go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah. And it might drive some people nuts because it sounds like I don't have a concrete opinion. I do. I have my own opinions, but I also believe that people should be able to go, oh yeah, well, Camilla did this because, they can say that based on some of the information they have. Like, it's possible. So anyhow, guys, I enjoy you all of you so much. And yes, Michael, they're not going to return that diamond, but yeah, I think they should, but whatever. It's the Kohinoor diamond, and the Cullinan diamond was a whole other subject. And I think we've gone through that a little bit, but they won't return it. They took it out of the crown, but they're not returning it. There's one there. The Cullinan diamonds were from South Africa, but the Kohinoor, the Indian diamond, it's a big deal. So anyhow, we could talk about this all night. The Queen Elizabeth didn't like Camilla from the start. She thought she was well-ridden pony. Ooh, girl. She also said that she thought she was wicked. The clips that I saw of the coronation was like a circus. These costumes were awful, and it's funny. Some of them were just, they were old. But it did make me chuckle a little bit. I didn't expect to be like irreverent a little bit when I saw because I've watched everything sort of in black and white. Like when we saw the coronation, of King George or Queen Elizabeth, it's beautiful. It's like black and white. But when you kind of see it in person, and now it's funny. When was it stolen and how? This is a long, long story for the Kohinoor, going back hundreds and hundreds of years. But in a nutshell, when was it? Like the early 1800s. There was the battle. The new Maharaja was a young boy. Because his dad was killed in this conflict. The mother was put in prison, and then the prime minister from England at the time, I'm sorry, I don't have the dates or whatever, came over and said to him, you need to sign this off because your mother's in jail. Give me the diamond, basically. Got the diamond. The young boy then was eventually sent to England to live sort of as an English subject with people that were connected to Queen Victoria. He became the godson of Queen Victoria. So obviously now, years later, he says, I want to officially hand you the diamond. But obviously he's been sort of manipulated into this English thinking. But the people in India are still like, yo, you took this under really grave and very manipulative and scary circumstances. Like, you basically threatened a young boy with his mom, and now you took the diamond. So anyhow, but they took it out of the crown, but they won't give it back. So yeah, I love hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much. You are all welcome. Everybody, whether you love the royal family, hate the royal family, love Camilla, hate Camilla, love Diana, love Harry and Meghan, don't love Harry and Meghan. We are exploring this together. And I'm not going to stop. I know that some people like me to do more history content, but this is history. And I am going to be talking about Queen Charlotte. Go watch it. If you haven't watched it, please watch it. I haven't watched the whole thing yet. And then I will continue to follow the royal family as well, but we're probably going to be coming on here talking about some history content as well. And we will talk to you later. Have a great, great night. Thank you.